Wasabi guys, coming back at you with another video. This time we're going to be going over the top 10 best blue cards in the Commander format. Let's get it started off here with number 10, which is Jace Vryn's Prodigy that flips into Jace Telepath Unbound. Just a very good card in any real blue deck in this format, to be honest, but mainly in graveyard-based decks because of that first ability of Jace Vryn's Prodigy there. Being able to tap to draw a card and then discard a card is extremely powerful. And then also, once you do get to flip him, Jace Telepath Unbound has immediate synergies with graveyard-based decks because of being able to recast instants and sorceries from your graveyard, which is so valuable. The plus is average, it's nothing special. The alt is somewhat decent of a win con. Every time you cast a spell, your opponents mill cards from the top of their library. So you can slowly kill them off there that way, but mainly the minus is the most powerful thing about the Planeswalker, and it's extremely powerful. All this off of a 2-drop, which is extremely easy to get out there in any game really, but in Commander, that's just a ton of value very early on in a game. Number 9, I have Burrell, Chief of Compliance. This guy is absolutely powerful. He's an absolute beast in dual Commander. 1v1, he's extremely difficult to deal with because he makes all your spells cost 1 less, all your instants and sorceries, So just casting spells significantly cheaper and making it very easy to cast draw spells, get more card advantage, just control spells in general, and being able to draw a card and discard a card every single time you counter a spell is amazing too. It's good card draw. It's just a great 2-drop wizard. And he fits in pretty much every single control deck I can think of. Even decks that don't usually play creatures are usually going to consider him. He's also good in Storm for the fact that he does make your spells cost cheaper. Number 8 is Glen Arkmaid. She is awesome because she has Persist, and her activated ability there is just 1 blue, and you get to counter a non-creature spell, which is absolutely insane. It gets around so many other control decks. They're usually going to be hoarding up counter spells, but it really doesn't matter because they can't interact with Glen unless they have some sort of stifle effect, which even then it's not that big of a deal because you get multiple activations there. She comes back with the Persist counter on her, and there's a lot of different interactions and a lot of decks that can take advantage of that, so that you can either flicker her or put a +1/+1 counter on her to negate the -1/-1 counter, so that you can constantly just counter non-creature spells. And she is a force to be reckoned with in this format just because of that. And extremely annoying depending on who you talk to. She is a force to be reckoned with. Number 7 is Consecrated Sphinx. One of the best and most explosive draw related cards I should say, because every time an opponent draws a card, you draw 2 cards. So if there are 2 of these out there, let's say your opponent has one and you have one, someone has to concede. Someone has to basically say, okay, I'm not going to be drawing any cards, in order to stop from both players just continuing to draw themselves out, which is going to happen and is usually what leads to people hating this card. It's extremely powerful and it can be abused like that, and it's just not very fun when you have 2 players that either they cloned it or they get their own copy out there and they suddenly just look at each other and say, okay, we're going to draw our entire decks out. But it's a very, very good Sphinx here, 6 mana. So it's not the cheapest card, it's not the most efficient card, but once you get it out, you're usually not going to have to worry about it. Once it gets around to your turn, you've already netted at least 6 cards off of it, likely if you're playing a 4-player game. So people are going to be hesitant to go off on their own turns just for the fear that they're going to draw you a ton of cards. But it's just a very good creature here, and usually an auto-include in most mono-blue strategies and many control strategies in general. Number 6 is Deadeye Navigator. Now, whether you love him or hate him, the sheer fact is that he's an extremely powerful creature and quite possibly the most powerful creature in this entire format. Just so many interactions with enter the battlefield effects on creatures, it is insane. Just think about if Sylvan Primordial were still allowed in this format, Primeval Titan were still allowed in this format, just the actual hell that would be going on. But there are tons of cards now that are just very unfair with Deadeye Navigator. I do feel that he does get a bad rap. He has 6 mana to get out there, and he does have to interact with very unfair cards like, say, Palinchron, that are already kind of busted. So to say that he is the inherent problem is really unjustified, to be honest. I do feel like there are fair interactions. It's not like it's free to flicker. It is 2 mana to keep going and going and going. So you do have to have the mana open in order to take advantage of it. But I think a lot of people don't understand is that there are a ton of combos that are busted because of the untapped creatures such as Palinchron and Great Whale. So if we got rid of those, Deadeye would be a lot more fair. And the only other cards I could think of that are busted with him are cards like Acidic Slime, things that you can take advantage of land destruction. So just a great utility creature for ETBs. He can definitely be abused. I'm not saying he's not extremely abusable, but you have to appreciate the utility here. Number 5 is Phyrexian Metamorph. Out of all the clone creatures, Phyrexian Metamorph is easily the best to me. Just barely edges out Clever Impersonator for the sheer fact that it's also considered an artifact, and the Phyrexian mana technically means that it can be casted for just 3 mana and 2 life, so it is a little bit cheaper there. And also just the graveyard synergies with artifact-based decks. There are a ton of red cards that synergize with the graveyards and artifacts. There's Sharuum the Hegemon that synergizes with artifacts in the graveyard. So not only do you have creature-based synergies with graveyards and interactions with creatures, but you also have it with the artifacts. So while Clever Impersonator can technically copy more things than Phyrexian Metamorph can, Phyrexian Metamorph has the benefit of actually being an artifact. You can use artifact tutors to search it up, whereas you can't do that with Clever Impersonator. So while there's some that would argue, yeah, you can technically clone a Planeswalker with Clever Impersonator, Phyrexian Metamorph is just way better when it comes to interactions off the field, in your decks or in your graveyard or in your hand even. So definitely use that as a consideration when choosing between the two, but I definitely would have to go with Phyrexian Metamorph in this spot. To me, it's a little bit better. Number 4, I have Pact of Negation. It pretty much is on this list because Force of Will is not optimal. There are a lot more multicolor decks in this format compared to other formats where Force of Will is usually, it's going to be preferable to Pact of Negation and other formats just because you're going to lose if you try to play Pact turn 1. And you really have to be focused around blue in order to take advantage of Force of Will. So you're either going to be playing a mono blue deck to play it because you want to be able to cast it for free. You don't want to have to pay the 5 mana, that's obvious. But Pact of Negation is better in this format because every single deck that plays blue could play it if they really wanted to. Every control deck especially. So Grixis decks, Esper decks. If you're playing that heavy control, you want a 0 mana counterspell to protect your plays, protect your turn, your combos. Anything that you have that's going off, you want to be able to protect it. And this is honestly the best way to do that. So yeah, you're tapping down 5 mana. You're following upkeep. But it's really worth it when you can stop something really bad from happening for just 0 mana. Everyone thinks you're tapped out. And I love it about this format too because we have 0 mana counterspells and people are always going to be looking at your mana and say, how much mana do you have untapped? And they see, oh wow, you're tapped out. Well, that means I can do everything. Wrong. Guess again. Pact of Negation, baby. And that's why I absolutely love this card. And it's really one of those cards that you really associate with Commander just because of all the combos and how you can protect combos with Pact of Negation and just, take advantage of the fact that, 5 mana is not really that much mana to pay for your next upkeep. So, keep in mind. Number 3 is Mystical Tutor because instant speed tutors for 1 mana are crazy. And the fact that it can search up an instant or sorcery, this is blue. There tends to be a ton of them. Pact of Negation, for instance. Yeah, pretty good. At the very worst, you just use this to get something like a Demonic Tutor so that you can search up something else. So, at its absolute worst, it's going to get you a tutor that can search up something even better. It has that going for it. Plus, it also has the fact that you can have interactions. If you're playing a deck that can draw cards really easy, like say Azami, where if you were going to tap a creature in response after playing a Mystical Tutor, then you get the card that you put on the top of your deck, and you get to play that at instant speed. So while it doesn't just add a card straight to your hand for 1 mana, because that would be really good, that would be even better than what it is, the fact that it still puts it on the top of the deck means that you can still interact with it. So if you were to put a counterspell on the top of your deck and then tap anything that can draw you cards in response, then you could draw that and then counter a spell in response after playing your Mystical Tutor. Really nothing else needs to be said about it. Instants and sorceries, they're just powerful in the game altogether. So yeah, Mystical Tutor is a pretty powerful card. Number 2 is Cyclonic Rift. And if this is any surprise to you, I don't know what to tell you. It is the best Wrath effect in the whole format, without a doubt. 7 mana instant speed may sound like a lot, but it's at instant speed, and you're bouncing all non-land permanents you don't control to their owner's hands. So even at its worst, it's just 2 mana to bounce a non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, which is very underwhelming, and you're most likely never going to do that. But if you absolutely have to, the option is there. And I'd be lying if I said I never had to do that. But mainly just the fact that it closes out games super efficiently. It's so common in this format, though, that people look for untapped mana. They say, how much do you have? Are you playing blue? And do you have 7 mana untapped? I mean, that's how common it is. That's how annoying it is for people. But as annoying and as unfun as it can be, you have to give it credit. It is an extremely efficient removal spell. I mean, bounce removal deals with so much. It deals with indestructibles, it deals with Shroud, Hexproof, everything. So it's super efficient and it's super effective. And it's why it's number 2 on this list. It's the best Wrath effect in the format. Which leads us to number 1 here, which is Ristic Study. It is up there. It is one of the best cards in the entire format. 3 mana, it sits on the field, and your opponents have to spend 1 more mana in order to keep you from drawing a card for each spell that they cast. This card is incredibly powerful because even if it's not going to net you a lot of cards, it's going to force your opponents to play slower. It's going to set them back a turn. It's going to keep them from speeding up their game, which is really what you aim to do with a card like this, and it's why it's one of the most powerful cards in the whole format. And the reaction is always different. You're not always going to get people that are smart and they're going to pay the 1 mana to keep you from drawing cards. There's people that are going to, they're going to be selfish in the play group. They're going to be selfish at the table there, and they're going to just let you draw a card because they want to use their mana. They just don't understand the importance of card advantage, and this card is going to net you a ton of card advantage. So anyway, guys, that was my top 10 list of the best blue cards in the Commander format. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know about your favorite cards in blue. Which cards you think are the most powerful in this format. Check out my other videos if you have not already. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already. I do a lot of other things that you will not want to miss. But anyway, guys, Void here signing off. You all have a wonderful day.